and this is our current events presentation. The topic that we were assigned to do is compensation for executives, specifically CEOs in major corporations. So then this is just our directions and our article link for this one. As you can see, we got it from the Wall Street Journal. And then this is a quick summary of our article. The summary of our article is, even though CEOs' companies might not be doing well year to year, their compensation is still rising, and their bonuses are also getting larger because they're a percentage of their yearly pay.
So wait a minute, slow down.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is the companies may not be doing as well, but they're making more?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, paid more.
Exactly.
Huh. That doesn't seem quite fair.
Yeah, that's what the whole article was about right there.
And I didn't mean to run ahead. I just.
Yeah, no
How
problem.
do you think? And maybe we're going off a little bit. And Matt, you know, just I like to do this.
Yeah, no.
How would this? If you're a worker in a company, and you saw them getting these big raises, and you didn't, what would you think?
Actually, we touched about this in a slide down the road, but it talks about like corruption in the workplace, because if you see that your bosses are getting paid, but really they're only getting, even though like the performance of the company is going down, obviously you're not going to want to work for that person. I know we've studied a lot, specifically in this course, about how to be a good boss or how to be a good manager, and you want to be someone that everybody wants to work for. And obviously if you're getting paid more year to year and your employees are working their butts off and you're not making the correct decisions and stuff like that, they obviously don't want to see that you're making off way better than anybody else is. So
yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Supposed to keep going.
Yeah.
All right. So the main issue with CEO compensation is that there's little motivation to want to perform better when they know that their pay will increase regardless of their results. And then another question that we touched on is how are CEOs making more if their companies continue to underperform? And then these bullets kind of summarize what we're going to speak about later, so we'll just move on. And then, why do large companies continue to increase the compensation of CEOs despite bad performances? There's a number of reasons. A few that they touched on in the article were there's two big ones, and they talked about long-term plans in companies. They said that CEOs, when they come in when they're new CEOs, they come in and they develop a long-term plan. And if they don't execute those to perfection, okay, maybe it's 1 year, 2 years, but these CEOs, they're not executing the 10-year plans and stuff like that, but they're still getting increases, and there's really isn't reason why. It's just that they believe that these 10-year plans are eventually going to work out, and they're just not. So that's why people are all confused about why they're still getting paid more.
So it might be progress towards a longer-term goal that may not be obvious in the financials.
Yeah, exactly. So they think that, okay, this person has a 15-year plan and we're only on year 4. Let's give them a little extra time because it seems like what they want to do is what they should be doing.
Right. So then would you assume that then that to improve employee morale, that they'd want to explain some of these things?
Yeah, exactly. And it talked about in the article as well, the lack of communication and stuff like that. It talks about personal incentives that CEOs are given that are not GAAP compliant, that are specific things that they can control year to year, say like coming up with a new product or something like that. So that's why they continue to get these higher pay cuts, is because they can control the personal incentives that they're given. So that's why they're able to accomplish those and get more money. So then we'll skip down. What researchers at Cornell and MIT found in the study is the issue of how companies measure performance. And like I just talked about, there's many operating and stock market goals that are set to measure company performance, but they are not GAAP compliant. Companies just attracting costs or financial benefits that they see are out of management hands. And then this means that we really don't understand how the performance is measured by these companies. and that they need to find, it's up to the board of directors to find how we can measure these and how CEOs are actually getting paid.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so
that comes back to the non-GAAP reporting that we talked about in 315.
exactly.
Okay.
Um,
Then that doesn't help you, does it?
Oh no, yeah.
Yeah, he wasn't there for the intercession. Oh no, that was FSA this last semester.
Right.
All right, so now what role should board of directors have in making sure that compensation aligns with performance and shareholder interest? Obviously, the board of directors plays a massive role. They are the ones that decide if they're going to do performance measuring or if they're going to do these non-GAAP compliant personal incentives that have become very popular. So basically what people want is people want board of directors to simplify the compensation packages for CEOs. There was an idea brought up that said some investors want to pay CEOs in cash and give them shares that they must hold on for, say, at least 5 years. And what they mean by this is that they want to, basically you need to incentivize CEOs with their own money. So if they give them these 5 years, maybe say 5 years minimum, you can reach to however many years they'd want to put. But if you give them stocks in their own company, they're incentivized to work harder to make sure that their company is increasing profits, not only in the current year, but they also are worrying about the longevity of the company and everything for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
So this bullet explains this would make it a lot simpler as well as create the want for CEOs to create long-term value within the company so they have greater returns on their own personal shares and the shareholders as a whole. Like I just said, they need to be motivated with their own money. And then, should CEOs be held accountable for the financial performance of the company? Obviously, this is pretty easy to answer. We all think that they should. This article is centered around the idea that CEOs should be compensated based off of financial performance, which Ben and I both tend to agree on. Like we talked about earlier, it is understandable to have a bad year or a bad couple of years, but if you have year after year bad numbers, the CEO should be held accountable. CEOs are they're always rewarded on their good decisions, but then something that may be a bad decision, they don't get blamed for, and they're still getting paid more as a result because of it.
Interesting.
Overall,
but if you or I did that, we would never have a chance.
What'd you say?
If that were you or I, we'd have to produce those numbers or we'd be toast.
Exactly. So it's like that's what I was talking about earlier with like the maybe say it's an entry level first year staff and they come up with an idea that they've ran numbers on and they say that it's going to be a good idea. Yet it turns out to be a bust and they dumped a whole bunch of money into it. They'll get fired. Well, CEO will still see the pay cut and it'll just slide under the table. And that's what everybody sees as the issue.
Absolutely.
So overall, CEOs have a complex compensation package where it's not just based on financial performance, and many are looking to change this. They want CEOs to be held accountable for their financial performance and therefore make it a factor in their pay, which we believe is only right. CEOs continue to get high pay and even raises as the investors in their companies continue to suffer losses year to year.
Okay.
Right, there you go.
So I think Benny's going to take this one over.
Yeah, my connection is just really.
Is
So
Boyd
then we
still
talk
here?
about.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, I thought I couldn't see your picture anymore. Sorry.
Yeah, I haven't turned away.
All right. Now we're going to the impact. This issue will lead to a big impact for many large companies. We were talking about how as more and more shareholders see stock falling when increasing the compensation for CEOs, more and more questions will be asked. They will want a change in the CEO's compensation package because it's like too confusing for them, and they want to understand how CEOs are being paid. Eventually, companies will have to find a simpler way to measure performance and therefore make it easier to understand how CEOs are being paid. Some countries are already beginning to do this and change the way CEOs are being paid. Norway was one example they talked about, and they have a $1 trillion sovereign wealth endorsed. The idea of compensating CEOs so that they are long-term investors, so they're more invested in the future of the company and not just their own personal short-term goals. And this has even been recommended by a House of Commons committee in the UK. It's only time before our government and companies begin to look into this issue. Overall, I think this will only have a positive impact on company stockholders and CEOs. They'll stop trying to meet the short-term goals just to benefit themselves and instead look for ways to improve in the long term. This will also protect the American people who invest in the company. Now we're looking at how this will change management. To make stockholders, investors understand how CEOs are paid, board of directors will have to change the management style by changing how they measure performance. This is like focused on the non-GAAP principles that they use, which increases despite poor performances. So they'll have to like simplify this so that shareholders can understand and employees can understand how CEOs are being paid. CEOs will also have to change how they manage company. If the board of directors goes the route of CEOs, long-term investors, CEOs will stop trying to meet small, specific goals and have been set out for them, and they will begin to invest in larger ideas and the future of the company. They become more invested in the company as a whole, being more hands-on, trying to keep employees happy in the long term. They become someone that their employees will want to work for when they see that they aren't only concerned with what they're making and want to benefit the company as a whole.
Okay.
Our final thing is how this will impact the future. With compensation continuing to rise for CEOs of large corporations, despite the lack of performance, we could see even larger wage gap. These companies that continue to increase salaries for their executives could also go out of business because the performance is not increasing and they're still having the CEOs get more and more money. Stockholders may sell shares if they see performance dwindling along with increases in compensation. There'll be more tension in the workplace amongst people that do not get raises as high result in performance to drop even more. With more tension, employers are left wondering why their bosses continue to get paid while they see that they aren't bettering the company. What we could see if performance measurements aren't changed, non-GAAP requirements continuing to give salary increases that are undeserved, CEOs only looking to meet personal goals that have been given that increase their salaries despite a bad year for the company, more corruption in the workplace, and large corporations that are unhealthy because of the executives only looking out for themselves. I think that was it.
Let's go back to a second and we, when you were either this week or last week, whatever week it was, is you had to define out your intrinsic work values and extrinsic and intrinsic.
Yeah.
Does this sort of what you said? Do you think it's reasonable that most CEOs are working for the money, for financial gain?
Yeah, but I think it will help if they become investors. They'll still be working for a financial gain, but they'll also company more because they'll want the company to succeed more, not just have their own personal gains.
Okay, but do you think what also might drive them is this power that they may have, power, prestige?
Yeah, that is a factor, but like I see that if the company like would make the CEO like an actual investor, they'll still have like that power and prestige, and they'll still be going for financial gain, but it'll just be more specific towards benefiting the company, not just benefiting themselves. I think
that even if you do make the CEOs investors, I think that since their own money is invested and maybe they happen to make a good decision that drives the company up, the power of making that decision might even drive them further to make more and work harder for the company, because not only are they making more money, but they look good in the eyes of not only their stockholders but their employees at this time as well.
Okay. Question for both of you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Would you want to be a CEO?
Benny, you want to go first? You want me to?
I'll go. I think I would want to be a CEO. You make pretty good money.
Okay.
Be in charge of people.
Okay.
But
I don't really know if I'd want to be a CEO. I'd probably go along the lines of a CFO, to be honest with you. I mean, I'd love not in the S&P 500 size company, but I would I'd take over a CEO job of a local firm or something like that. But I think I'd rather be a CFO as far as this goes, because there's just a lot of pressure on you during those times, and it takes the right kind of mental person to be able to do that every day.
Mm-hmm. I wonder how they actually balance time in their personal life too.
Exactly, and there's so many stats about like divorce and everything like that with CEOs, and the work-life balance would just I really value a work-life balance, so
It's
I don't know if I could
important. It's very important.
yeah,
I
so I
say
don't
that
know
in
if I could put
retrospect.
I
Yeah.
couldn't put all hours of my day into just my company. I'd probably get sick of it, to be honest.
Yeah, it does drag on you. I
Yeah.
would tell you it does because I've been there, done that,
hmm
and the pressure to perform is like intense.
If you make a great decision, you'll be praised for it, but if you make a bad one, you're on everybody's
Yeah,
bad
or
side for a
somebody who
while.
works for you screws up, and it's on your watch, so you're responsible.
Exactly. Yep.
Good thing. Any closing comments from either one of you?
Um, I don't think so. Thanks for doing this at 8:45 at night on a Sunday. Appreciate that.
You're welcome. I'm gonna